So the Republicans have badly mishandled the PR around the Signalgate situation. And it's interesting because I'm so used to the Democrats being horrible at messaging. It's almost refreshing to see the Republicans screw it up so badly. I'm kidding. I wish we had just competent political parties. The answer here would have been for the Republicans to just say, hey, this was a bad mistake, a bad screw up. We are looking into it. We will tell you as soon as we have more information. But for some reason, everyone from the administration to the right-wing media has decided that the plan here needs to be to spin this story, to downplay this story, to insist there's basically nothing to see here, which anyone with a modicum of intellectual honesty can tell is not true. We have seen the chats. Clearly, it's completely inappropriate for the editor of the Atlantic magazine to be privy to conversations in which you are talking about the precise time at which you are going to bomb Yemen. There is an expression in politics, if you are explaining, you're losing. And it's interesting because Charlie Kirk, right-wing commentator, is somebody who is an incredibly savvy messenger, an incredibly savvy communicator, but he too seems to have fallen prey to this over-explaining, trying to defend it, trying to pivot around it messaging, while also saying, no, all they need to do is say it's a big deal and move on. So let's go through a couple of these clips.
And by the way, when you have presidencies and administrations like this, you're going to have little hiccups and you're going to have speed bumps. The best way is just to take responsibility, confront it head on, and say, it was a glitch. It shouldn't have happened.
I'm going to give a little pushback to the idea of this being a little hiccup. Don't think this was just a minor glitch. I do think this was a serious breach of national security, but I get Charlie's point. Where things get a little weird is when he says the right answer is to just confront it head on, admit it head on, and then later himself participates in the obfuscation and downplaying that I've seen a number of Republicans doing. For example, in this clip.
Do you know what a real scandal would be? A real scandal would be if we had J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth saying, yeah, we have to kind of save face with our base, but the Europeans are actually awesome, but let's pretend that we're tough on Europe. Could you imagine? That would be an actual scandal.
So this idea that what we are dealing with is not an actual scandal, I keep hearing this. I keep freaking hearing this. I played this clip on my last episode on Wednesday, but we're going to play it again. It's Jesse Waters, just a quick clip of Jesse Waters on Fox News saying something similar.
No one died except for terrorists. There was no collateral damage. The mission was a success. And Democrats think they have a scandal. Accidentally adding someone to a group text, which we've all done, is the new Watergate.
It's a scandal. We can all agree it's a scandal. That feels like the lowest bar to clear. So it's so odd to hear Charlie Kirk on the one hand going, take responsibility, move on, that's the best way to handle it. And then simultaneously going, you know what a real scandal would be? The actual scandal. Now, by the way, he's making an interesting point, which I agree. I totally agree, actually. All things considered, the content here that was leaked is not damning for the Trump administration, and it would have been worse. It would have exploded this even to a higher degree of scandal, let's say, had the administration been caught saying things in these messages that were antithetical to what they say publicly. So I get Charlie's point there. I actually think there's legitimacy to that in a big way. It's this notion that this isn't really a scandal, however, that I just can't wrap my head around. Now, finally, you had Charlie Kirk tweeting out Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's, God, that is a hard last name to say, Pete Hegseth's response to the Atlantic story. Pete Hegseth was not caught on camera. He was confronted by reporters, and Charlie retweeted it with a quote, "I noticed this morning," I guess about the Atlantic story, something came out. It doesn't look like war plans. They even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. So Charlie retweeted this from Pete Hegseth. And now I've been seeing this everywhere. A lot of Republicans tweeting, no units, no locations, no routes, repeating that refrain. If you're explaining, you're losing. Like, the semantics here are just a silly look. There weren't war plans, they were attack plans. You texted a journalist, an anti-Trump journalist, the specific timing of when you were going to bomb Yemen 2 hours before you did it. Don't fucking wordsmith us here. It's obviously bad. It's obviously a scandal. It's obviously bizarre. And I will say, I actually respect Tomi Lahren, who's somebody who I think has really fallen off, but was a big deal many years ago in the Republican commentary space. Let me get this tweet. She tweeted, "Trying to wordsmith the hell out of this Signal debacle is making it worse. It was bad. And I'm honestly getting sick of the whataboutisms from my own side. What's good for the goose is good for the gander." I actually don't even know what that means in this case, but admit the F up and move on. She's 100% right. She's 100% correct that is how this should be handled. Now, the last thing I'll say here is that I do think Charlie raises some very interesting points as part of the broader episodes he's done on this. The main one being what I think is the chatter happening in many conservative circles right now, which is, how did this happen? How was Jeffrey Goldberg added to this group chat by Mike Waltz? Mike Waltz, the national security advisor to Donald Trump, is the one who added Jeffrey Goldberg to this chat. But Mike Waltz claims he doesn't know Jeffrey Goldberg. He doesn't have his number. He's never met him. So this is something that I actually covered in the last episode as well. This strange, meandering explanation, just nonsensical explanation that Mike Waltz gave to Laura Ingraham about why Jeffrey Goldberg was in this chat in the first place. Let's watch me from the last episode watching that.
I could tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone. Everything's coordinated.
But how did the number?
I
mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
First of all, no, literally never in my life.
Mistakes,
right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact, so of course I didn't see this loser.
No, why would you have somebody else's number on somebody else's contact?
Now, whether he did it deliberately or it happened and
so he thinks that Jeffrey Goldberg put his name in his phone under a different contact name, but he's never interacted with him. How did Jeffrey Goldberg, who by the way looks like he's older than this guy, how did he do that in this? Okay, continue.
But how did it end up in your phone?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Stop talking. And this is where Charlie Kirk has been hammering this point, basically saying this story doesn't make sense. You know, I had initially seen this clip of Mike Waltz and I chalked it up to like, duh, these incompetent old people. But that's actually not correct, probably. Charlie Kirk is right to say this seems like it's probably more sinister than that, in the sense that Mike Waltz seemingly had to have had Jeffrey Goldberg's contact information. And if Mike Waltz is claiming that he has never talked to Jeffrey Goldberg, why would he have his contact information? Anyway, let's play this clip by Charlie.
Oh, for example, if I want to message another one of my friends that I message on Signal, let's say Mike Davis, who I message a lot on Signal. Mike Davis comes up as the first contact, meaning when you type in a letter, whether it be J for Jeffrey Goldberg, you had to have had established contact with that person in order for that contact to come up first. In order for this to have been a mistake that Mike Waltz made, he would have to have a lot of contact with Jeffrey Goldberg. Enough so much that it populated as the first contact to be added on Signal.
This is a good point. This is a good point. Let's continue it because he is about to bring it home.
And Mike Waltz is the admin of this chat. We're going to play a piece of tape, though, because either Mike Waltz is completely lying or Signal is compromised.
Right there. And he repeats that throughout this episode. Charlie Kirk does. He says it's binary. It has to be one of those two options. Yeah, I think he's right? I think he's right. Now, he goes on to play a clip of Mike Waltz during that Laura Ingraham episode that I also played. But it's interesting because I will be very curious to see what comes out in terms of how exactly this happened. The kind of silliness of it, the PR mess up of it aside, that is, in fact, the most interesting bit of this scandal. And frankly, I'll be fascinated to see what more comes down the pike. I am recording this video a bit earlier than I ordinarily would relative to the time it is going out because I'm going out of town. I say this to say that if any of the information in this is out of date or irrelevant by the time you see it, I apologize. Hopefully that won't be the case. All right, that is our episode for today. Please let me know in the comments other things you would like me to cover. I would love to know. And with that, I'll see you next time.